Maybe all of you are relating to what I'm going to speak of for just a moment or two. Um, it seems like a time of great um, dying, right? Whether that is the way we view, racial inequality, poverty, rich, education, schooling, church, the whole thing. It's a time of just great dying. Everything's falling away. And in my view, and I know it's, a fairly kind of limited view, I talk with people over and over and over and over um, that are out of that dying to the old. It's leaving space and openness to wake up in a way that I have never witnessed as being available before. We online yesterday, a friend of mine who's I've known for many years, and he's a therapist. And he was saying he's literally, in all the years he's been a therapist, has never seen such availability of the silent ground. He'll just drop himself and open it up to those he's talking with, and they have no meditation background, no real interest, and they just drop immediately into the silent ground. He said he's never, maybe you're seeing that too, Jennifer. He's just never seen anything like it. And he's talking to other therapists and different people doing that kind of work, even somatic therapists. And it's just something collectively is being awakened. So being a teacher or guide, whatever this role is, for 18 years, and many talks later, the question is, how is it, can we as a very mature Sangha, this is a quite beautiful and mature Sangha, how can we meet what's arising, and how can we open to the profound grace that's available on the planet right now to allow the freedom from the past to actually be lived, actually to not so much go into an ascension, a spiritual bypass where, it's all a dream and none of it's true and whatever. And then, our lives are just full of unconsciousness and neurosis. But how can we truly see it as the actuality is that the past is virtually no, it does not exist except in a memory in this present moment. It's an illusion. It's gone. And the only reason that it comes forward in our lives, in our attention, in our awareness, is because it's an act of love. It says, okay, sweetheart, here it is again. And maybe you can bring it into consciousness. Maybe you can actually see it with the ability to make it fully conscious, with the ability to be open as this loving, welcoming presence, and no longer be identified as the past, as we are, until we can really look and see for ourselves. And I'm speaking of the big view, actually seeing what the past is, and then the appropriate or the aware response is it's seen through. There's a compassionate, loving listening to what it has to say, and then it's a letting go. What I don't see collectively is the letting go, right? And it's innocent. In many cases, we actually don't know how. So I thought today that we could really explore that in a way that is we'll be really pretty focused on that. I never know really what is going to be brought out. Um, I had sit through probably 15 to 20 years of Dharma talks when I was very much devoted to long silent retreats. And I loved every one of them. I loved Dharma talks. I thought they were marvelous. And, they always would have these great poets and, people would, they're very intelligent people, the Vipassana, that was the tradition that I mostly set. My Nate and I mostly went to the retreats. And I was very impressed, they were very clear and precise and spoke of, the Buddha's teachings and how they perceive that and whatever. But when my teacher asked me to teach, he pointed out that to have nothing prepared at all, to not have an outline, to not have a teaching that you can draw on and bring forth in the fullness of this teaching, is just to sit down, see what comes up, and then begin to speak. My personality was an extraordinarily shy personality. I just simply could not speak in front of anyone. It took till really there was kind of an essential shift before I could ever even speak to my beloved teacher, Ajahn. I would just, hover and then maybe lift up my hand and speak maybe 2 words or something, and he'd just like, boom, bring it all out that I couldn't even, verbalize. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is each configuration of the Sangha, each one that comes together as one view, one field, one heart, one being, because that's the gift that we give one another as a Sangha. That kind of isolated, I don't need anyone, I don't need to be with the Sangha. I'm just going to dive into, the Buddha mind and the Dharma and eliminate the Sangha. And, for some, that's their way. But what actually happens here is that by opening to the natural state, the beingness that we are fundamentally, and letting go of the intellectual exercise of, well, I don't know if I really go along with that. And well, I don't know, I've been taught something different, or, whatever the mind is doing, is to just make that commitment to drop in awareness. You can call it Buddha mind, you can call it the Christ consciousness, you can call it the natural state, whatever is resonant and true for you. But if you drop out of the mind that has concepts and background and teachings and all sorts of defenses, and that's really what it is a defense. And it's innocent, but it's a defense. And then just resonate as we are. Then we can really be of benefit to each other, and we can bring forth a field that is rich and alive and vibrant, and literally burn and dissolve what is in defense within the mind. So that's what I would encourage. And everyone within this room knows they're the natural state. Everyone within this room. And I see some frown lines up here, so right. It's a difference of language. I'm sure that's probably what it is. But it's just a letting go, dropping, not an ascending, though the ascension is not closed off, a being present, and it's a felt, vibrant quality of being. Then we can really serve each other as the Sangha is designed to do. It's one of my favorite things about retreats is after about a day, maybe sooner now than it used to be, the natural state, the great being, the Buddha mind, the Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call that we are, begins to vibrate and sing and direct. And if I have a job, it's to follow that, right? That's what allowed this extraordinarily insecure and very shy human being be able for 18 years to get up and speak. It wasn't because all of a sudden I became, confident. It was something was coming through and began to choose the words and began to respond to what people were asking and could see different obscurations that were being built up in the body and the mind. And then there was a response to that, right? So that's what I would encourage. That was one of our reasons of wanting to have a little bit longer time together than just a satsang, is to allow that to build and allow that disappearing into the natural state itself. And then the mind, it may chatter, and kind of comment and carry on, because that's its job. It hasn't been, offline yet. But it's just a reflection that is somehow formed in the past. Do you hear what I'm saying? That's really all the chattering mind is. It's been somehow conditioned to believe or to defend or to respond in a very habitual, conditioned way. It has no inherent reality. But that felt sense, that quality of awake and bright and alive, settled, aware, present, available, loving, not someone over here loving something over here, but loving. Then the mind on its own will start to either unravel this kind of ideals or ideas of what's true and what isn't, the habit of defense and conditioning from the past. But it also then starts to get on board. When the mind starts to get on board and serve the awakening, the awakened life, then it begins to acknowledge and confirm and collaborate with what is awakening. Do you get that? But there's usually an interim where the mind is still being habitual and doing its thing. And the only way for that to relax and to re-harmonize itself as a reflection of your natural state, the mind reflects. So when it starts to get that something is arising and awakening, the mind will reflect that. But there's an interim. And that interim, the key is not to pay any attention to the mind, which is almost impossible in our culture.